Good evening, everyone. I call Thursday, March 25th, 2021, Peninsula School District Board of Directors meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. Natalie, you want to lead?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
The Board of Directors is very pleased that Pierce County has moved into Phase 2 of COVID-19 Healthy Washington Roadmap to Recovery Plan.
3.
Well, it says,
It is 3. It does say
it's my cheat sheet. 3, as of this afternoon, thank you. I'm not even going to read this. Okay, I'm not even going to read that. Okay, next up we have the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda? Okay, so I'm going to recommend that we move item number 9.1 to be our new number 4. That is the introduction of our new superintendent and the superintendent's contract. 9.1 will now be item number 4. And then I would like to add a discussion of Governor Inslee's announcement to move to 3 feet following the district reports.
Would that be item 7.4 then, or is it just?
Yeah, that was correct, 7.4.
Okay.
So discussion of Governor Inslee's decision today, Tanya, 7.4. Okay,
I move to approve the agenda, moving item 9.1 to item number 4,
okay,
and adding 7.4 to district reports.
thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Deb and seconded by Lori to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's been approved 5-0. Okay, our new item number 4 is going to be the introduction of Kristen Barr and our superintendent contract. Okay. Is there any discussion prior to the vote on approval of Kristen Barr's contract? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve superintendent contract?
I'll move to approve the superintendent.
Second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Natalie and seconded by Deb to approve the superintendent's contract. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's carried 5-0 to approve the new superintendent's contract. Go ahead.
They will ask you to do a roll call vote on the superintendent.
Okay. So we'll do a roll call vote.
Director Griffin?
Aye.
Director Glover? Aye. Director Olson?
Aye.
Director Christensen?
Aye.
Director West?
Aye. All right. We have a new superintendent.
Art, do you want to say anything, or you would like to introduce Kristen and maybe say a few words?
I arrived on these shores, I think, in July 30th, 2018, to a short time. My pleasure to introduce the superintendent, is Preston Barr. And I know you've all met, but if anyone in the audience, Preston, would you step forward and find a good place for you?
Where should I be?
Camera-wise, right at the table.
Right at the table? Yeah.
not being-
I know this table well.
No stress, no stress.
We have not been.
Sweetheart, we've been together a long, long time. Grandson Jansen,
And Jensen, how old are you? 4. And where do you live? Yeah, in Snoqualmie. Okay, thank you for coming tonight. All right, Nana loves you. And my daughter, Kaya, and my granddaughter to be soon in there. And then my daughter-in-law, Andrea, and our 1-year-old grandson, Lincoln. And missing is my son-in-law, Jeffrey Burgess, and my daughter's daughter, Corinne. So this is the Barr family, the extended Barr family. So thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Thanks for
We
coming.
look forward to getting to know you all.
So I just want to thank you so very much. I'm very honored, very excited to get started. And with that, I'm available for any questions, or I have answered many questions.
As we've answered.
Today.
I have eaten today. Thank you for asking. Goody.
Your very first Peninsula School District mask.
Oh.
You don't have to wear it long. Okay, Peninsula School District ball cap.
Thank you. Oh, and it matches my blazer. Oh.
For coming.
Seems that you've been loved by the school board.
And masked. All right. Thank you so much.
So thank you for coming tonight. We know you've got other plans that you've got to get to.
I do, but I'm very, very excited, and I will be supporting this. So thank you for your faith in me, and thanks for the wonderful welcome to the community. We look forward to it.
I would add one element. Preston's board in the Eatonville School District has generously agreed to share her this spring. Officially, she starts with us on July 1st, but she will have 15 days that she will be able to visit, be around the district, be able to talk with staff and begin that transition. So she and I are working on a transition plan that will get her ready to go on July 1st as if it was already home.
And I'm looking forward to it.
We will share that calendar with you because you will also be part of the people that she will want to sit and talk with. So it's my pleasure to make that announcement.
And Art, I just want to let Lori
Except one
told me,
more
Lori told me
comment.
something this morning, I just wanted her to say.
He wants me to pass it along. I went on the Eatonville School District website today, really because I was looking for your email address. And, when
I did get your email. Thank you. I haven't responded yet.
When I did that, it pulls up the opening page is a letter from, well, that's not it. There's a letter from you, but there's a letter on there somewhere from the board. And I thought it was lovely, and it speaks volumes about you and about the community of Eatonville. It was very, you're over. It was very, just, you were so loved there and so well respected, and they were in turn so lovely. And we spoke to some of them last week, your board members, just in the way that they speak of how much they learned from you and how much you did for their district, and at the same time saying we are thrilled that you get to now experience that, and you know it's time for her to move on to different things. But that was really a credit to you and the culture you created there, and it was really nice to see.
Well, I so appreciate it, and I feel like they grew me into a different person, and I'm leaving with a lot of love, and I'm coming here with a lot of love. So I'm really, really excited about partnering with families and partnering with the board and partnering with the community and staff, and I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled. So thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. You're really asking me to do this without my glasses on. Sorry, David, I probably signed in your spot.
You have no chance of getting away.
All right.
Here we go.
Thank you, and we are going to take kids home, if that's
Yes.
okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you. Can we go out this way, or?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Nice meeting all of you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
So we'll now move to agenda item number 5, which is the superintendent's report.
I think the big item of the day, and knowing that we've just added some time to this meeting later, I'm going to report that it has been a beautiful couple weeks to have all of our kids in school. We have the entire system from preschool through 12 now attending in person. This has been quite a month to achieve that. It took a full year from the March 13th closure to this year to get the last of our kids to be able to enter through the door if they were ready. And I think that just says volumes for the whole system. And one of the things you'll hear me say later in the conversation about 3-foot versus 6-foot, early on there was conversation as we first shut down about developing the ability to pivot on a moment's notice once we knew how to do the remote. I want to report that it took us a year to figure out the pivoting, and it is about the most complex thing that we have ever done as a school system. So I just offer that in terms of appreciation for all the work that was done to get to this point. In March, the governor has now handed us an interesting discussion to have amongst us, but I'm so proud of the system and having all the kids back. It was a great work by the staff, and I thank them publicly. That's my superintendent report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 6, comments from our student representatives. Abigail, would you like to go first?
We're back in our school building and private learning has started. We're trying our best to get into the flow of things, but we're trying to give the students the benefit of the doubt because it's kind of interesting and hard to go back to what we were doing, because before we only had like 3 classes a day and now we have all our classes back. So we're trying to be gentle and understanding. Graduation is June 18th at 6 p.m. at Summer Park, but there could be changes in that plan due to COVID. So it's, you know.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you. Connor, you're up next.
Okay, so.
Please remember to speak up. Remember to speak up a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So start off with our schools kind of events. So we have our food bowl event that was originally supposed to be around fish bowl, and it kind of got pushed back due to scheduling issues. So that's from March 29th to April 9th, and I'm pretty sure you could drop it off at the front office at either high schools. And then for us, the ASB elections are starting with president and vice president. They're kind of like campaigns. They're going through April 7th through 9th, I think is when the voting is. And then for the treasurer, activities coordinator, and secretary is April 21st through 23rd. And then the senators are April 28th through the 30th to be able to make sure that every kid is able to vote. Like, because since we have A and B days, we have like select sections for every kid to be able to vote. And then for the election campaigns, all of them start through March 31st, and then they go through all of April. So, and then they all have their own little like speeches that they put on video. We would have an auditorium kind of thing where we had like the candidates show up to like in an assembly and do their speeches, but now we're pivoting to have like, videos that they would show in the classroom. So that will be on April 7th and 21st. And then we're also having our Mad Week, Make a Difference Week, which is April 19th through the 23rd, which will be a spirit week and various small activities and events for students to have on campus, and the details will be coming soon for that. And then for athletics, football, girls soccer, volleyball, both cross-country teams and both golf teams finished their season roughly in the concluded season 1. And then season 2 is now underway with the first game starting this Saturday for the baseball, boys soccer, fast pitch, girls tennis, and boys swimming, and then track. And then kind of the big thing for seniors is that you have to pick up your graduation gowns in the main office and rewrite in the April time frame.
Since you're wearing your Ties baseball shirt, I hear your first game's next week against Peninsula High School.
It is on Monday at Dayton.
Yeah. Okay. Wish you a luck on that. Okay. How about you, Hope?
I just wanted to begin by saying thank you to the board for all of your hard work in helping with the return to hybrid learning for the high schools. As a senior, I didn't think this would have been happening this year, so I am really grateful, and it's being able to be back in the classroom is really meaningful for these last couple months. No matter how much time is in the classroom, it's really something special. So just on that note, hybrid learning, I started at Peninsula, and it's going very well. We welcomed freshmen to campus the week before everyone else came back, and it went super smooth. We had lots of leadership students there helping welcome the kids, answer questions, giving tours. Kids marked 14 miles of walking around the school between 2 days giving tours. So the kids were definitely more acquainted with the school and feeling a lot more confident when everyone else came back on the Monday, Tuesday. Students are really adjusting great to the new hybrid learning and following the COVID guidelines within the schools. They're excited to be back in the buildings and learning with teachers. Fall sports just finished up last week, and I wanted to give a big congrats to our girls golf team. They won the 4A League Championships, and Kaylee Bass was named the SPSL 4A Player of the Year. So that was really awesome, and a big shout out also to Peninsula Girls Soccer. They had a win over Gig Harbor High School, which was a super big deal for them, so good job, girls. And as well as our football team, they had a game against Bellarmine yesterday, the boys' senior night, and they were actually able to have some fans in the stands for the first time this season, so another super big first. So good job to them too. I think they'll be finishing up soon. And like Connor said, spring sports started this week, so we have track and field, baseball, softball, boys soccer, girls tennis, and boys swim and dive all starting. Lots of students participating in those sports. And also, like I said, Food Bowl is starting on Monday, so just like Peninsula and Fish Bowl, we're going to come back and win Food Bowl too. All the donations go to food backpacks for kids, and they're put right to use within our own community. And so if you are interested in donating to Peninsula High School, you can donate at the ASB window at the beginning of school every day, and they're looking for non-perishable items that can be sent home with kids. So peanut butter, like beans, granola bars, pasta, etc. And PHS leadership is hard at work planning some events for the springtime that we're excited to bring more news about coming soon. And also, ASB elections are beginning at Peninsula come May time. And this year we did something new. We had homeroom representatives, and they would meet with ASB in our morning meetings on Wednesdays and then report to their homerooms. And sadly, with the new schedule, our ASB meetings are after homeroom, so we can't have homeroom reps anymore, but I just want to say a big thank you to all the students that were involved with that, because they did a really great job helping spread information and being involved. And that's all.
She threw the gauntlet down, Connor. So item number 7 is comments from the community. We did not have any members of the community sign up to address the board this evening. So we move to item number 8, district reports. We have a report from our Executive Director of College Career and Life Readiness, Erin O'Neill.
Good evening, President Wilson and Board of Directors. It is my absolute pleasure to share with you the progress we are having on our NNDCC program, National Navy Defense Cadet Corps. And we're going to hyphenate it with NJROTC, and I'll tell you why in just a second. I'm not going to take a lot of your time because I also want to introduce you to just someone fantastic as a program director for our NNDCC program. We've got him hired, we've got him working hard already, and he's going to join us in just a second. Commander Darrell Hood. who is new to our district, another great addition next to our new superintendent. So he'll get to meet him tonight in just a second too. So first I want to briefly share with you, next slide please, Tanya, this notion of NNDCC and NJROTC. Really to make it simple, the Navy JROTC program is what we're offering. Same curriculum, same expectations, same opportunities for kids as a JROTC program. The reason it's called something different is because it's where the funding is based. So we fully fund the NNDCC program, and we're going to work really, really hard to be a state-of-the-art program so that we become JROTC faster. Once we do that, the funding will be supplemented by the Navy, so that's pretty exciting. And this is kind of a backdoor into offering a program instead of being on a wait list for 10 to 12 years. We'll talk about that more here in just a second. Next slide. Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about the progress. In 2016, a group of community members and staff members sat around a table at the ESC and said, we need to bring ROTC to this district. We know the value of it and the opportunities that it gives our students, so let's go chase it. So we tried. We tried really, really hard. And we applied for the Air Force ROTC, and then we applied for Navy ROTC. Those didn't pan out. The reason for that is there are a finite number of programs across the nation, and you can only become one when another program closes. And that waiting list that I was telling you about, that's about 10 to 12 years, that's how long it would take to become one. So we found the back door, and that is the NNDCC program, where we can get it started. And remember those evaluations that we have every year, and that Rockstar program we're going to be, that's what's going to get us to the top of the JROTC list faster than other people on the waiting list. So in 2019, we applied for, 2019, we applied for the NNDCC program, and you'll remember about a year ago on April 20th, we got the letter from the Secretary of the Navy that says, hey, you're in, let's do this. Now, talking to Dr. Jarvis in the middle of the pandemic, he's like, how can you get this started in January? And I said, well, if you want a really great program, let's take our time and do it right. And I'm so happy that we've been able to do that, and we're launching a new program this fall. Actually this summer, right? We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Next slide. So I'm going to bring Commander Hood. I'd like to have you give him a really warm welcome. He has already been working for us for about 6 weeks, really 2 full-time jobs. He's currently employed at Shelton, and then he's also done a lot of work with us. Thank you, Dan. Already getting this started, and we're excited to share with you that progress. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So glad to have you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. So my obligation is to tell you what the NJROTC NNDCC program is all about. The purpose of it, as it says, is to teach citizenship. It is a citizenship development program. It is not, as it says, a recruitment tool. That's not the mission for NJROTC. The Department of Defense has recruiters that do that type of thing. However, that's not our goal. We are to teach citizenship, leadership, develop the leadership that some people may not understand that they already have in them, and fine-tune that to help them become better leaders going forward. We want to make sure that they feel like they're part of a bigger family than just their little small world that sometimes they devote themselves to. They sense they are there for the rest of the team. We build that team by creating a sense of accomplishment so that they have an opportunity to see. You work hard, you put in the effort, there are things that are benefits that come from that. And last, a sense of direction. We want to make sure that kids are given opportunities to choose, have different ideas, different ways about pursuing their future going forward. Next slide, please.
Can I insert a quick comment?
Yes, please.
Because they all know me well enough about how we work really hard to build aspirations and make sure kids have a plan to get there. And oftentimes, how do we do that clear, connected connection while they're in high school? So we might have students who are very interested in the military. What a great way to see if this is for them because of how we emulate things in the program. And they might decide before they graduate, maybe this isn't for me. or maybe it will confirm their aspirations.
I've been very fortunate to have 3 commanding officers over the last 3 years that were leading the organization, and neither one of them joined the military. It's okay. There's no harm there. But they developed some great leadership aspirations, and they carried that with them through as they're now pursuing their education. Who participates in the program? As you know, it's a district-wide program, and as such, our doors are open for everyone. 9th through 12th graders, and the program will be located at Peninsula High School. However, anywhere in the district, we're saying, please come. We'd love to have you a part of it, and we don't want to exclude the homeschoolers as well. So we want to make sure that they get the work, that they're invited to be a part of the program. Next, please. This is a basic outline of the curriculum that we will offer. It varies from citizenship, naval orientation, naval history, navigation, seamanship. We're going to try to do it all as much as we can. The biggest part is going to be drill, command, and ceremony, and then we are going to have a component of physical fitness and health that will be taught through them as well. Next, please.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
Go back, please. But for your naval orientation, navigation, seamanship, are you going to be able to maybe partnership with the Maritime Academy or whatever? I can't remember the exact name over in Tacoma. You have that young group over there that goes out and does sailing. Will you be able to partner with entities like that to actually get them on a vessel?
The possibility of doing that. Any opportunity to team up with others that are trying to emulate or advance those knowledge areas, then we will definitely do that.
Okay, great.
So of course, the curriculum brings one piece of it, but there are some opportunities that they don't even see and realize in this. We'll give them opportunities to earn awards. We'll participate in every parade that we can possibly fit in. The Navy Ball will be our ceremony, our prom every year, and we will invite our dignitaries, you, ladies and gentlemen, to be a participant in that as well. Scholarships. Unbeknownst to a lot of kids, they don't realize that as a member of the NJROTC program, their scholarships abound out there. I have the opportunity and the distinct pleasure of being able to nominate 3 candidates for the Naval Academy each year as an NJROTC instructor. We have Naval Prep program that says, hey, for that kid that may not be that 4.0 student, that's the top of the class, that needs a little work, the Navy now has a program where you will, if you're accepted, you get a year preparation at a university, and then after that, you're offered a 4-year scholarship. That wasn't offered to someone like me growing up, but I think that's a great opportunity for those to figure out if that's for them. And they can, if they apply and choose later on to not accept it, okay, no harm, no foul, and then we get better at selecting them and putting them in those positions. Field trips, absolutely want to do one of those. I tell everyone that my ultimate goal is a senior trip every year. Hopefully we'll get an opportunity to go to the USS Arizona or to DC each year. Funding depending. As I look at the CPE director, right? Yes, we are going to look at doing a summer leadership camp. We need to have that foundation established early on so that when we start the school year, we have young men and young women able to lead because the program was ran by the cadets that are a part of the program. And hopefully you will see us in the community. We will be out there as much as possible trying to do what we can to support the community because we want to make sure that kids understand that it's about giving back. You're going to have to put in some work, put in some time and effort, and you're required to do community service as well. You want to get promoted, put in some community service. Next, please. Yes?
Yeah, so we definitely want to offer a summer program, and we're looking at a couple of weeks where maybe students are able to get a full year of Navy science done this summer. But really the goal is to build leadership in those students so that when we start in the fall with a larger number of students, we've got some rock star, kiddos who are leaders in that program. So more information to come on that. And what we're really looking at, and is already approved by the CTE General Advisory as well as OSPI, is to offer Navy Drill, Navy Science 1, and Navy Science 2. We're likely to be able to add Navy Science 3. Remember, if we do that summer class, we're going to have kiddos by spring semester ready for Navy Science 3. And that's really critical for not only our older students, our juniors and seniors who are about to graduate, but if they choose to go on into the Navy, they not only have access to those scholarships that you were talking about, but they can go in at a higher rank. So students who complete at least Navy Science 2 can go in at an E2, Navy Science 3 could be E3. So we really want to make sure those opportunities are available to all of our students to participate next year.
And that opportunity for promotion is not only for the Navy, that's for any branch of the military. They'll grade some military rank for that. So starting out day one, if the military is an avenue that they pursue, then they've already got a bonus starting out.
Aaron, you may be getting to this, but will these be counted towards 424 classes? And
They
are
will.
getting to a credit? Okay.
That's a great question.
Do you
So
have
they
any
will
idea?
all automatically be CTE credit and elective credit. That's a given. And then we're going to work really hard on the board policy for equivalency credit. An easy win, if you look at the standards, is PE and health. All of the standards in those are covered. We have to follow the process. But if you also look at the overview of curriculum, there's a semester of science there. There's a semester of social studies / civics in there. And so we want to make sure that we maximize that so students can take advantage of all 4 years in their schedule if possible.
Thank you.
And next slide. We won't get into this too much. If you'd like to talk more about it later, I'm glad to. But how does all of this work? Kids coming from all across the district, from 3 different high schools, and the 0 hour per drill, how does that work? Well, we want to make sure that it's accessible. And so one of the approaches that we're taking with this is drill at 0 hour, because we want students who are participating in Navy science all day long to be able to access drill if possible. So that's why you see that. And because we don't want our new instructor working 24 hours a day, we probably won't offer a second drill the first year, but we might be able to add it on as we add instructors. And then also with regard to transportation and respecting students' time, how can maybe we chunk their schedule so they can get access to more programming? So what you see there on the left is a student, for example, coming from Big Harbor High School or Henderson Bay, might come for 0 hour, stay for period 1, and it could be blocked with period 2. And so that way they're actually getting dedicated time in the program without being on a bus too much of that travel time. So this just shows some of those options that will be available next year.
And like current 0 hour now for some of our band and athletes or whatever, it's your own transportation to get there at 0 hour, so it's clean, correct?
Well, we're working on options. It might be definitely your own, but in what ways can, especially with more options at 0 hour, how do we provide transportation in ways that can make this accessible for students? Because we don't want that to be a barrier. We're not quite sure what that looks like, but we're working on plans. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So with the program launch, one of the things I want to, this is kind of a big deal. It's not just a new course, but it's a whole program for our students, and that's a big deal. Our goal this first year is 100 students being involved in this. And how might we do that? We have about 3,200 high school students, and so our goal to get that, and that's unheard of. 100 the first year is unheard of, but that is still our goal. Yeah, lofty, darn lofty, but we've got some things in place. So for example, we've already met with the counselors, we've met with high school administrators and middle school administrators. We're offering community meetings next week on Tuesday and Wednesday where we have 90 families signed up for more information. Commander Hood is going to do some video meetings with our middle school, and we'll likely set those up for our high school students as well. And it's really hard to do in hybrid, but we're figuring it out. But we're really excited about not only the momentum, but also the interest, frankly, that's happening so far. That doesn't include a mailer that went out to our 3,000 kids a few weeks ago, where immediately you had 15, I think, responses right away. We want to know more and get involved. We've also been working with, as I said, the district is responsible for the cost the first year. So we've been working with other units in the region to acquire some of their things, like uniforms they haven't used, other equipment that they haven't used, and they've been so responsive. So we feel really good about that. Do you want to share the news?
Sure, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think
You can't hold that news back.
So in regards to the uniform items or at least the budget, we've been very fortunate to work with the members of the legislature to technically or supposedly here in the near future receive a grant for $170,000 to outfit this program starting out. So that's a huge step in the right direction. We're going to use these uniforms for years and years to come, and these uniforms are identical to the military uniform and Navy uniform, with the exception of one item, and that's just a badge. So that was going to be a huge cost to the burden on the program. So I think we're going to be ahead of the game by doing this. Thanks.
So we'll keep you posted. And then the other thing with that and the funding we want to talk about is the location. Really a beautiful location. And when I say it's the old auto lab, you might not think so. But it has great potential for not only the classroom, but an area for kids to do their physical activities. And we're really excited about how that's going to look as we prepare for our students to come in. We wanted a warm and welcoming environment, and so our facilities folks, the finance side, principal, you've been involved in that, and we really want a place that kids want to go and belong and be part of.
You mentioned the company name.
I've not mentioned the company name. So we have a little bit unique circumstance in that we're located at Peninsula High School and we serve students throughout the district. So we can't be the Seahawks, we can't be green and gold. So we're working on the identification that comes with the company name. And we want to get students and parents and our families involved as we get started, so we'll keep you posted on that. Do you have any questions or anything that we can clarify for you?
I'm just thrilled. I'm, really excited. I know we've been working on this for many, many years, and as a fellow lifer Navy guy, super excited. And we just met. We already started talking sea stories, so we want to be careful to put this together. We may not ever get out of the room, but I'm just really proud to welcome you to our program. And military people, you walk up, you look at their chest, and okay, where's it been? What kind of medal you got? So just being able to see that, I know how highly accomplished he is. I'm just really thrilled to have you part of the program.
Thank you very much, sir.
Any other questions?
I just have a couple. You talked about this at the very beginning. What's required to be recognized as NJROTC? You mentioned that's the goal, and you explained why we didn't start out there.
Go ahead, please.
If I may, it definitely depends on funding that the Navy has available.
Okay.
As there are a finite number of units that are out there established, as they fall off, whether it be to enrollment, whatever the case, then they move people up along that line. But the better we look, the more students that we have enrolled, how we pass our inspections, that sends a message to the Navy that we are, as a school district, invested in this program completely. And they say, okay, well, maybe now is the time that we do it earlier. Hopefully we can do it in a couple of years, by 10 or 12.
This is awesome. I love your tenacity with this and not just taking no for an answer. So I'm really excited about it. And then how was the location was determined just because that's where there was space?
Yeah, so when we did the application, we said Peninsula High School. It seemed at the time that would be the best location, and we can certainly get permission to have it in another location, but then that takes, we got to get going.
Right.
So that was really the influence on that. And the beautiful space. I mean, there's lots of square footage where we have it, and that's kind of unheard of too.
Sure.
So, great. More questions?
So this, you're thinking of maybe getting things going this summer. Would that be credit type classes? Would they get credits for? Yeah.
Yes, we were thinking about a summer camp for leadership, but especially with our students and what they're facing now, some of them, credits, how do they access them and that sort of thing. Why not? Why not offer the class? We already have the structure through West Sound Tech, where we can do it and get credit, and so that's what we're leaning towards. We just have to fine tune some things before we fully commit.
I say that because I have a son who might be interested in a summer teaser
Yes, so Western Tech this year, not to digress too much, but they're allowing us to do 2 full summer sessions where normally it's only 1. But again, we want to serve students, so that would allow us to actually give some students the whole year of credit, or those that just want to do one of the sessions instead of all summer, they could do one of them too.
And I have utmost confidence that you're gonna get your 100 students in there. Utmost, between the 2 of you. But one of the things I remember talking about this years ago when we were talking about this program, really our best recruiters are their peers. And I know that it's been hard to bring in a drill group to show at a football team or something, but have you had any like videos or something that kids can basically look kids in the eyes and say, this is what I'm experiencing, or?
We're going to do that. We have not done
Like
that
I said,
yet. We have kids that are standing by coming from Shelton that are going to be on the Harbor Talks so that they can share their experience of what they've done as well. They are in the process of making a couple of videos that talk about from a recruiting aspect. But then we need to get kids, especially for the summer, if we can get them into a position that they start to think what they need to do. Let's put them out there so that they can be the advocates for the program going forward. We'll definitely put an effort, make an effort to do that.
And speaking of advocate, we also have, I'm not kidding, the best instructor. I'm so excited. But one of the things that he has said too is kids oftentimes change their mind maybe at semester or get involved in something that they don't really like and want to try something new. And he's willing to allow students to come at the semester too. So it's always a second chance to build your leadership, but then also bring in more kids too.
When is high school registration? I feel like it's coming up.
I feel like it's coming up too. I think they're looking 2 or 3 weeks. We've kind of like the catalog and that sort of thing, so I know they're getting things ready. I don't have exact dates for you, but
We're working on it.
Dan,
But our families and students will have the information prior to with their meetings next week, so they'll be prepared to make those decisions come. Okay, good. Thank you.
And it's all in the catalog too, so they have access to the descriptions and times.
Well, again, welcome.
Thank you very much.
And Navy boot camp, 0 hour could be at 1 a.m. or 3 a.m. Do you have flexibility to do things outside the
1
normal?
a.m.?
Whatever time is convenient for your student.
Just checking.
David's in the front.
Yeah.
Just
You know,
checking.
that is a component we didn't touch on, and just briefly, our parents and our community are critical, you know, to ask.
Absolutely.
When we talk about all the activities that are involved as well as the class, we're gonna need help. And so we'll be reaching out to our community to help with those things too. So we got you down for
Happy to help.
Well, thank you so much.
I just want to just chime in real quick too and just say how I am so amazed. This has been something we've been talking about for years, and I love what you said. Thank you for not taking no, because I think you mentioned there were a lot of no's that came our way before we got to this point, and you took it bigger and better and found commanderhood. I mean, greater than I could have ever hoped for. So I'm so excited for this. And I will just be the first to volunteer as a chaperone to the Arizona trip. So,
Trying to solve it. Oh, there's a question?
yeah, student reps, any
Anybody?
questions?
How about the students? Yeah, thank you for that. Any questions?
I have a quick question. The space you're talking about, so is that at Peninsula High School? And then will that be like the designated? And which space was that?
Automotive shop.
Oh, is that in the, like the 500 or the 600?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You know where Mr. Morton is? Right
Yeah.
across the way? With the big overhead door, so, yeah.
Awesome. That's exciting.
You'll have to hop in and see what it looks like sometime. Any other questions? Thank you.
All right,
Thank you
thank you.
for being here.
Welcome.
Thank you guys for staying with us.
Now the report from Assistant Superintendents tonight. John Holich will start, followed by Dan Gregory.
Go ahead.
I've been kind of going first for a while, as with COVID, we've been dividing up our reports mostly by level, so I've been giving new elementary reports and advanced secondary reports. But now that we have students back in, we're going to kind of revert back to what we did prior, which is I'll be talking about the Gig Harbor, Peter side, Dan to talk about the Peninsula theater side. So I'll start with an update on Pioneer Elementary and their expansion plans. So they're gearing up for their second lottery, and they're going to be adding 150 students to this wonderful building. They will get up to a capacity of 450. Part of that is just by rolling up their fourth grade to their fifth. So they're currently a K-4 school and will be a K-5 school next year and going forward. The enrollment was open for the lottery from March 1st to March 19th, and there was 386 entries, 450 slots. So once again, it's a very popular place to go to school, a lot of interest. And so, the downside is some long waiting lists, but we were able to fill a lot of those slots during the year this year and will in the future. The lottery is going to be on a Zoom webinar on Monday, April 5th. The time hasn't been set yet, but it will be set next week. Stephanie will be pulling all the numbers to place all the students in the classes, and then once they fill, then she'll continue pulling until she's pulled all 386 to then have the full number list as the waiting list. I want to share a couple of learning things about Pioneer as well. It is a STEAM school, and so you may wonder how that's playing out on a daily basis. There's a fourth grade unit that is what patterns are there in space, and if so, how do they affect us, and how do you build a model of a space pattern? And so the teams have been partnering with the public library for text resources. Students have been describing the rotation, the revolution, and orbit of the planets in our solar system, and how that impacts climate and other features on the planet. And now I want to get to the A in STEAM, the arts connection. So the students learned about a classic piece by Gustav Holst, and the students studied the music, its connection to the planets, and are now writing their own musical piece about Earth. At one point, a student who was studying Jupiter said, that music makes sense now. Jupiter has a lot of storms. And the art and tinkering specialists is what they call their specialists, are teaching students how to use stop motion to show patterns in the sky. And their focus is always on inquiry, building student skills to ask insightful and deeper little questions. So I just wanted to give that little update on STEAM and how it's playing out. A couple of quick secondary notes. One of the big concerns is on learning loss. So how much as these kids are coming back. And one of the nice pieces of data that Kopachuk was able to pull is that they have their students set their own, special education students and all their students set their own goals. And 60% of their special education students met either their reading or their math goal already at this point in the year. And that stacks up favorably with other years. So they're not seeing that big difference. And still a lot of time for all those kids to get to their goals. At Goodman, they said they've sent out their D's and F lists, and they've been very happily surprised at how engaged families and students have been to take care of those and get their grades up in good standing. For high school, we heard a little bit from the students already, but just the overarching good feeling as students are back in activities, in clubs and in sports. And so we heard a few of those reports from our students. The Big Harbor football finished 3-1. Girls soccer went 8-0. The Tides played for the championship game but lost to Wallop 2-0. Volleyball went 10-2 and had the second best record in the league. Girls swimming was second in the league and finished third in the conference meet. Boys cross country went undefeated in dual meets and finished second to Curtis in the league championship. Girls cross country went 3-1 in the dual meets and then edged out Bellarmine to win the league championship. And both boys and girls golf finished 3-5, but had a successful season. So, and more than the records, just the amount of kids that were out were able to participate safely, and get back into that kind of normal piece of their lives. So, it's a little update from the other side.
Can I see just, I know OSPI requested all school districts in the state give them a plan for addressing learning loss. Did we already submit that plan? And if so, was it accepted?
I believe it's due June 1st. If that's
I think that's the one we still have.
Okay.
So yeah, and we're talking about, what are we doing now to provide those interventions to get kids caught up, and then we're making the plans for summer school as well. So a lot of work still to do there.
On the enrollment here at Pioneer, do we continue to see the trend where the schools that are further away had less interest, like Evergreen?
I do have some numbers for that. So 43 of the students that put in are from the Peninsula, which is about the same percentage as we've seen in the past. Again, very few from Evergreen with their new building coming along, which is understandable.
So that's from 3 schools, okay,
43, yeah. Again, you know, I think Stephanie and the team are always trying to figure out how can we better get the Pioneer message out to the key and make sure that it's an option that they understand.
I think it's distance.
Certainly. Yeah.
Parents don't want to travel that far for activities, and so we'll be addressing that later.
John, you mentioned 60% of the special ed kids are meeting or exceeding their goals. When were the goals set? Were they set with anticipation of COVID-style learning, or was it set prior to that and they're meeting those goals?
So they set the goals in September. So even this year it was on Zoom where the teachers would meet with them to go over their scores with them and look at what the benchmark would be and set those goals.
In looking at years prior to, were the goals much different than
I
prior?
I can get back to
See
you,
where
but
I'm getting at.
I don't believe so. I believe that the point was that they were able to kind of do it had they done it in the past, and that they're seeing results that are very similar to the past, which is not, you know, that's a positive thing.
Good. Okay. And then kind of the learning loss, and this is you or Dan or Art, and I'm sure we'll get more information on this, but I know that we couldn't meet all standards every grade, and we had to select some of those, right? And then district-wide we did that. So I'm assuming we're tracking that, and so the 3rd grade teachers know that the 2nd graders didn't have certain standards met, and that's going to be part of the plan of bringing them, catching some of those standards and recovering some of those standards. Is that
right?
some of the
At
thinking?
the end of each year, we want to be able to identify what are those what we call sometimes power standards or critical standards that the students know at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then the incoming teacher needs to know that so that they're able to make that up.
And how is that assessed?
What's that?
How is that assessed then? What standards they're not?
It's going to be assessed in different ways, different subjects, at different levels. I was describing iReady. That's one of the common ways that we do that through K-8 in reading and math. But there's other assessments we use as well.
Okay. And did we do assessments early on in the year, and we'll be able to compare them to the springtime?
Yeah, we don't.
Same type of assessments?
We have things like iReady and DIBELS and
all that.
subject area
It was done in the
tests, like
fall.
all that. Yeah, we don't have the SBAC, but we have most of the regular assessments that we would normally do.
It'll be interesting to see how this year compares to previous years, to see where the growth is, and if, you know, really where we do need to catch up, or where we celebrate successes that we were still able to move along kids. I look at some of our elementary class sizes and how much those kids are progressing, given the attention and the teaching that's happening in those classrooms. So we might be pleasantly surprised to see some of the growth of those kids. So anyway, look forward to seeing all that.
I'll expand on that a little bit when I get
Okay,
into the
like I
elementary
said,
side
it
here.
could have been for anybody.
There's some information I got recently from some principals I haven't even had a chance to share with them yet, but I'll spring it on you tonight.
Thank you, John.
All right, good. Thank you. Thank you, John, and again, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. Yes, it's exciting. I would just like to start just echoing Dr. Jarvis's comments about it's a beautiful thing to have kids in school, back in school, and I've been around to several of the schools and been in the halls and popped into classrooms and got a chance to meet with some students today, and I'll allude to that a little bit later too. Just working on what we just talked about, yes, at our elementary schools, visiting with several elementary principals over the last few weeks, you know, we've had a real targeted focus on early literacy. And the principals report that staff are deeply engaged in the MTSS work around early literacy, and it's just exciting. They've appreciated the initial work in that area, and my terms, not the principals, but they're hungry for more. They're hungry for more. I visited with Christy Brooks recently and Hugh Maxwell, and it's like, boy, this has really got people excited. And, you know, we've got some people that want to go earn certifications, which means they really want to go deeply into this early literacy piece. And so that's a really exciting piece. I will share with you, to your comments, Deb, and again, I didn't get a chance to talk to John about this today. One of the concerns was there may be some gaps, and there may be some gaps in early literacy, especially as students go from grade 2 to 3. And so most of our work has been with teachers from K2, but I think one thing we need to do is start to branch that out into grades 3, 4, and 5, because some of those early literacy skills that are missing, we really want our grade 3 teachers to be able to address in Tier 1 instruction as well. So, sorry, John, we'll get back to that and get back to you. But you know, there are some gaps. We are achieving well. We've seen good results, especially in K1 since they've been in the longest, and class sizes are small. I think Lisa Ray alluded to that. The good thing is we have people noticing that, and so we're going to be able to address it, and that's an exciting piece. I was recently out with Hugh at Evergreen, and I know Dr. Jarvis was out there this morning. I didn't get a chance to talk to him at the end of the day, but I hadn't been out there for a while with all the planning we're doing. But I've got to say, when you drive down the road and you look to the right, that new building just looks huge. It just jumps right out at you, and so it's exciting, and it's kind of a morale boost for those folks out at Evergreen as well. But it was almost shocking when I drove by and looked up. It just came right out of the ground, and it stands out very well. Middle schools, we've been in for several weeks now. Principals reported that early on it was really structured and rigid, and the students, I'm going to use quotation marks, are now starting to feel a little more comfortable. And so that's a good thing. It's a good thing. We got to rein them in a little bit, but it's nice to see them get a little more comfortable and a little less rigid. We reconvened our secondary advisory group, our secondary hybrid advisory that worked with us on the return to school. And both middle and high noticed that students are really appreciative of being back. And we're having really no problems with the protocols around mask wearing, attestation, temperature checking. I had one teacher at KPMS even said, you know, some of those that challenged me in the past, they're just being really good. I think they really appreciate being here. And so it's been a very positive feedback. Principals report that collaborations amongst staff is at an all-time high, both around academics, but also supporting each other personally. You know, they've been working hard. They run into some challenges, whether it's an academic support and they're working on those priority standards, or whether it's somebody who struggles with technology being mentored by somebody else. It's just that academic support piece, but that personal support piece as well. So just that sense of team is stronger than I think it's ever been. They're starting to look at the typical end-of-year activities and saying, which of those activities can we do so that we can develop some sort of sense of normalcy, and how can we do them safely? And so they're working on a lot of that. And I talked to Mr. Wickens today, and he said, I'll be emailing you a proposal soon, Dan, about some of those activities. And I said, please do, and we'll go through those. On the instructional side, they're having mid-year goal conferences with their teachers, and all of the middle school principals from both sides. They were coming up with some common questions to get people to reflect and grow, and one of those was, what did you find to be particularly successful during remote learning that you will continue to implement in either platform? And again, it's just an opportunity when we're teaching hard to step back and reflect and say, what was really successful? What made a difference? And as we come back, we need to come back better than we were before. So what did we learn, and what are we going to continue to implement that has made us even more successful and more effective? At PHS, you mentioned summer school a little bit, and we haven't talked much about our typical summer school for credit recovery that we run at Henderson Bay. Dr. Potts and the team at Peninsula High School have come forward and recommended a rather creative option for summer school. We worked through a lot of that, brought it to cabinet, and kind of vetted it out, and we're in the process of looking at that. And really, we want summer school to have a character this year. Really boiling it down to those priority standards, so we can think about enhancing the participation by addressing just those priority standards, but also tagging onto it something where students can really pursue their passion, whether that passion in non-academic areas, whether it be some kind of work with athletics or drones or some kind of clubs, STEM clubs. How do we get students in the door so that we can address the academics, but there's a carrot for them and something we want to pursue. And so that was really fun to see, that creative thinking and the opportunities there. Going back to along the lines of normalizing, I had a lot of fun this afternoon. I thought I was driving over to Peninsula High School for a meeting, but I drove over to sit on a Zoom, and I met with a number of our seniors, both included, and we've got some senior leaders that are putting together a plan for prom. And it was a really good plan, and it was very well done. And I'll tell you what, we've got some students that are thinking out of the box and getting creative. And I told them I would bring it back and talk with people at the district office, and we'll vet that prom plan. But you know what? That normalcy piece, and one of the things we talked about, and Hope knows the beginning of the presentation was about the prom, and it's been my experience, at least for recent proms, that kids kind of show up and they get pictures taken and then they go. And I didn't see a photo booth there, but they eventually got to it. And I said, try to recreate what you guys go to prom for. Let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can do it safely. So they've got a great plan, and it was fun to work with them on that. Finally, with Swiftwater, thank you, first of all. I think it was a couple board meetings ago, but we've got the name going, and so Mr. Brooks has been busy. He's been busy with his core team, and a couple weeks ago we had the opportunity, and I joined him and the core team to do a walkthrough, just as you have done in the past. And boy, as they walked around and they looked, they were so excited about what good work they're going to be doing there. And that's a fun part to see the teachers do the walkthrough and look at things. The naming committee reconvened last night, but it wasn't for naming, it was for mascot purposes.
Oh, yeah.
And so they had 126 responses to their mascot survey. That included 54 different mascots. They narrowed down to 3, and the survey will be going out here shortly with those 3 names, those 3 mascots. I saw that look. I promised him I wouldn't say anything because the survey is going out, but I said, David, if you don't want me to share, that's fine, but I'll let the board know that when the board meeting's over, they can ask me, and then I can share it because the survey will have already gone out.
Did the same thing happen with the mascot for Pioneer? They went out with they used the same naming committee, or is that uniquely Swiftwater?
Yes, I've got to compliment Tanya and Chris Hagel and Karen and everybody on the redistricting work, because we got the list of names of students that would be going will be going to Swiftwater, and we were able to target them. We targeted them with a letter, and all of the elementary students that are actually changing schools received a letter this week that gave the incoming 5th graders the option to grandfather, and then we talked about other younger siblings that process. But with that list that all of those folks worked on, Mr. Brooks tagged on there the mascot survey. And so that
I'm
went out
assuming
to all of his new
cheeseburgers isn't
constituents.
one of them.
Pardon me?
Swiftwater cheeseburgers.
Swiftwater cheeseburgers. I looked at the information this afternoon, and I don't think that one made the cut.
Okay.
Somebody threw banana slugs in there somewhere, and that was.
UC Santa Cruz.
I was going to say it's a UC Santa Cruz piece right there. So, any questions from the Peninsula side?
I do have a question. It's actually for either of you. I know you weren't necessarily planning to talk about this, so if you wanted to talk about it at the next meeting. You mentioned talking to Dr. Potts about some creative summer opportunities, and I was just wondering if you if there was something you could share about what summer opportunities might look like different this year for other ages than normal years. And again, if you wanted to do it at next meeting, you could.
I'll share the model.
Okay.
And we, again, through cabinet vetted the model, and then we met with all high school principals one day, and we were actually talking about a number of things. We're talking about remedying some of the incompletes that are still on the books from last spring. The model that they proposed would help us in that, and then we also talked with them about, we know we just got back, and we know people are scrambling, but it's the analogy I use with them, it's like a chess game. We got to be thinking 2 or 3 moves ahead. So what can we get done this spring, and then what do we get done in summer, and then in the fall? Their model includes bringing kids in for about 3 weeks from 8 to noon, and with the idea that the first 2 hours would be targeted academic remediation on the priority standards. So if I'm a student and I have an incomplete in algebra, or I failed in second semester or even first semester, I'd come in and I'd have a teacher and I'd work with that teacher on those targeted standards. Not all of them, just the one I missed, because the beauty of it is if it's done internally within the school and the 5 of us are on a math team and Lori's going to be the summer school teacher, I can tell her exactly which standards my student didn't hit. So it would be 2 hours of academic work and then 2 hours of club time, and they're still kind of formulating those clubs. Again, they're thinking some drone club, music, art, drama, athletics. They're just trying to keep it wide open so that there is that student interest. And there's an opportunity to do the work in the classroom, but then also to connect and engage with other students. And that's one thing that was missing for almost a whole year.
Right.
So I think it was a really creative, wonderful idea, targeting the academics and the essential standards, but providing it cleared out there as well. And so we're working that through to see if Gig Harbor can produce the same kind of energy behind that, but we've got to offer something. A lot of questions about learning loss. There's a lot of belief that, oh, we'll get it all made up by September, and we won't. We've got to, formulate a long-term plan, but let's start where we can and let's do what we can right off the bat. I think the elementary question might be for another time, because I was talking with Mr. Maxwell about what we might do there, and I know he's been working with Lisa Ray, and we're looking at how we can get creative and do some of that work. I think one of the questions on the key is, where are we going to do that work, and what buildings are they going to have access to?
To kind of piggyback on what Lori was saying, I'm student A, and I can look at my Power School or Schoology, and I can see which my classes are incomplete or I'm not. So would it be my initiative to go forward and be in that summer school, or is there going to be kind of a proactive communication to student and parent? Because I think parents were a very big part of education this year, as they always are, but even more so this year, to say, here is student A, I'm missing these areas.
Put me on the spot in front of all my colleagues that I haven't had a chance to talk to yet. I just visited with Dr. Potts at about 2 o'clock this afternoon, and his goal would be to have things in place before spring break so that the targeted recruitment of those who need it can start to occur right after.
So it will be some formal, which is great, because I think that's
not enough time in the day for me to get back and talk to John and Karen.
I also haven't had a chance to talk to Dan about this, but in meeting with the Gig Harbor administrators, I do believe they're on board for that model that we just heard, and that probably combining on one campus, probably Peninsula, but with staff from both schools and students from both schools would be kind of the most efficient way to do it, and get both high schools behind it.
And I know that I believe this is to be true. To be able to fund this, the kids aren't going to be paying to go to it. We're able to recover that through maybe our ESSER funds or some other way of.
I'm looking at Karen. She should come over and take the hot seat.
Yes. Short answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, it would be recovered, or the district would be able to.
Yeah. And that's what
from here?
Yeah, that's what we vetted through cabinet.
Okay.
Was ESSER.
Yeah, so we do have ESSER 2 funding, and we can use ESSER 2 funding for that support, and that would probably be the first money that we would put towards any of the summer programs that we are looking at. And I just have to add that we're looking at a lot of summer programs. And so it's not just the high school, but I think all of the various grades, all the schools are looking at what can we do for kids.
Thank you.
So kind of expanding on that, we've lost a few kids in the high school. Are we following up to see where we lost them? And this is a great opportunity to maybe bring some of them back.
If I can jump in for a second, you're kind of talking about April's agenda for the board.
Okay.
We're going to bring to you both on the side and in the meetings the multiple plans that are rolling out for that. So I could guarantee you a good 90 minutes worth of conversation we have to share.
Good.
So I'd like to reserve that for the April meetings.
Okay, yeah, I'm very
Let
concerned.
them spend the talk. Thank you.
I'm just very concerned because those are the kids we can't catch up on if we don't catch them now.
Yes. We have plans.
Okay.
Of course you do.
I have just one clarifying question back to the goals that our students were setting for themselves and the measuring. Was that specifically through iReady or Dibbles or something that's?
It was iReady.
Oh, okay. So it's not just my goal is to read 6 books.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
No,
something that's
it's a
measurable.
benchmark goal.
Okay.
It's something Kopachuk's been doing for several years, but they've done a really nice job of involving students in looking at their results and setting their own goals.
Yes.
Yes.
I am painfully
I was
familiar
gonna
with
say,
some.
I'm sure
Let's
you're
do it.
familiar with
One
that, but
president.
we'll put it on record.
So just one more question, and maybe over to Aaron. For the summer school, is that something we can capture some of the CPE kids? Would that offer something in that realm?
We are on it, yes.
Okay,
April.
I'll wait, okay.
Thank you.
Thank
I will
you.
be also inviting John and Dan back for this discussion that we need about the pre-flip. They're fully engaged.
All right.
They don't go anywhere.
Thank you.
You're gonna have to clean it if you and I didn't.
Okay, so item 8.3 is a highly capable department with John Yellowleaf.
Was that a tag? You're it. Yeah.
Back.
Good to see you again.
So, good evening, Board of Directors and Dr. Jarvis. Thank you for your time this evening. I didn't know that Joy and I would be able to sit up here together, so this is nice. I was just going to get up and introduce her basically. And for those of you who don't know Joy Giovanini, she is a highly capable coordinator for the school district and has been for the past 6 years, I believe. And she does amazing work coordinating our highly capable services and programming in the district, as well as our CAPE programming, and works deeply with our NTSS and inclusionary practices and a whole bunch of other things. So thank you, Joy. Joy's here to present about our highly capable services and programming and give you a board update this evening.
The teacher inside of me wants to, you would go Moodle and like get up and have you move around, but I'm gonna just do this kind of stuff. So I'm just gonna follow along on my computer with what Tom's sharing there, perfect. Before I started, I was just recently watching a webinar for a book that came out called Unlocking Potential, Identifying and Serving Gifted Students from Low-Income Households. And I was really struck by this graphic, and it really almost looks like a continuum, but I wanted to ground the conversation because it went so nicely with what I was going to share. Because it really talks about when you change and you look as a culture and as a community to make sure you're serving a wide range of highly capable students, and you're looking at sometimes those underserved populations, all of these things need to be hit. And so it's looking at attitudes and changing attitudes and belief systems. It's looking at resources. It's looking to make sure that we're getting students at a really young age. It's not just necessarily throwing out standardized testing, but trying to leverage and make sure that there's a fairness and an equity to that. So I just wanted to share this and have that kind of in the back of your mind as I talk about what we do in our district and what we've really been striving for the last 5 years. So there's so many components to highly capable, but I really did want to just narrow in on some of that equity piece because I think that there's been quite a bit of that in the news over the last couple of years about programs that really haven't had that as a hallmark or a foundation, which we really have. And so I want to make sure, especially since you're ambassadors to all of the different programs, that you, I wanted to speak to that and just make sure that it was shared how hard we really work to make sure that we're finding all of the students and having equitable practices in identification and also in servicing. So I really like to think about things in analogies. And so I would like to go ahead and move forward. I just wanted to take this and look at it from the perspective of spring, like a tree, being able to think about what we really do to pour into our programs and then what fruits come out of that. So you can kind of think of this larger analogy as we go in. So the first piece is those equitable identification practices. And I know that you've had this, and you've had a chance to review and kind of look at these pieces, so I'm not going to go through every single bullet. I just wanted to highlight, in addition to some of the pieces that most of the districts do, like the multidisciplinary team has a wide range of people. It's not just one person making decisions on a single test at all. It's a team that has a school psychologist, it has counselors, it has administrators, teachers, myself, and we go through and look at a range of data. We really dig incredibly deep, and it takes weeks to go through all of those elements. But beyond all that, there's a couple pieces I'm really proud of that are unique to our system, and they were in response to teacher feedback, gaps in our services. And so one of those I want to narrow in on is that K1 growth model. So originally, when I inherited the program, the laws had just changed the year before around highly capable identification. And so it was kindergarten students taking a bubble Scantron test the first month of school. And Lisa Ray and I met, it was the same year that we were shifting to 5-day program, all these things, and we met with the kindergarten teachers, and she's just so incredible about really getting to the heart of things and listening to people. And I came to say, how can I support you? What's happening? One of the things they said was, this Scantron thing is just insanity. These are kindergartners, there's babies, they can't even barely hold a pencil up, let alone get a tiny Scantron piece. And so over time, we really looked at, we tried to move it to the May, we tried to look at different models, and we found another school district that used picture-based, like picture book-based screeners that was project-based down in Evergreen. And we brought it to the teachers, and we really were intentional about it. A couple of teachers tried it, and now we've actually expanded. So our K1 teachers come to trainings around highly capable services. They think about that differentiation piece. The access that I've had in this district to be able to work with teachers at different grade levels up through secondary as well is just astounding, and really, I think it changes their practices of feedback. And so by doing these picture book-based screeners, it was a great way to be able to really see the students in that out-of-the-box thinking. But in the long run, teachers have said, I changed the way I've done this. I took this, and our team has made 3 more like this because we really get something different out of our students. So that's something I think is such a great evolution from where we started, and it really has made a difference in their daily practice. And then the second piece I want to just hone in on was with the EL piece. I go through and I really look at our demographics, and we'll talk about that in a second, and try to see, does our highly capable population represent our community? Does it represent our school community? And for the most part, it really does, and I'll narrow in on that. But for our EL population, I had some concerns demographically for underrepresentation in Hispanic population as far as ethnicity, and then I also for the EL population. And so about 3 years ago, I really changed our practice. So we go in and we take, and I worked with both of the last EL coordinators, I take the ELPA scores, the ELPA 21, and go through and do a deep dive and look through all of the students to see who is gaining language really quickly. And so who is transitioning out, or who is in a dual language home or an other than English language home, and they're not even getting EL services. And so with that information, then we go through and look at things like iReady, in-class data, and we make a watch list and reach out to the teachers. And students that are usually not referred, and you'd be amazed at how many times when I email or call and contact the teachers and say, hey, this student is coming up with learning this language really quickly, and I want to share with you, these are some of the characteristics of a highly capable student when it's a second language learner, or when it's a student from a lower income home, or any of these pieces. And over the teachers say, I didn't really think of it, but now that you say that, I see this, and we refer the students, they fill out the form, and the percentage of students that end up being identified from that watch list and second data screen has just been astounding. And then they end up getting services, they're in program. And I've actually shared it with OSPI, like at the coordinator meetings, and we've had other districts follow in that footstep and use that model. So just one of the many things, like we have a grade level screen, and we have a lot of things other places do, but that was something where we saw a problem and really shifted. And the students were there. We just had to change our practice so that we could see how were they showing those abilities, and it was that they were gaining language at a really incredible rate. And then, so our EL identified students that are high cap might not be as high, but those that have transitioned very quickly, had EL services in the past is actually, I'd say, more impressive and higher than other districts. So what is the fruit of those labors? There's that wide range of highly capable students identified in our districts that really does represent our demographics. Sometimes when you've seen in the news, there's communities where, for example, there might be 10% Caucasian students in the district, but when you look at their gifted program, it's 95% Caucasian. And so it really doesn't represent all the different ethnicities in our district. I go through every year and just look at 504 representation within the district, students that have 504 IEP plans, students from all the ethnicities, and it's amazing for the last 5 years. And it's a retroactive thing. It's not that we're looking at that first and narrowing in. We're looking at, and it's within usually like 0.5%. And sometimes our highly capable program has been more diverse than our district. And so the Caucasian percentage might be like 75 to 80% in the district. And at times, when you look at the different ethnicities, it might be like 2 ethnicities or more, or and that would be about 10% for our district when I was looking at the last 2 years. And same with the highly capable program. And those that identify that are Black, they're 2% for the district perhaps, and 2.2% for the highly capable. So that's really unique, but I think that it really shows that we've done a nice job of being able to have people broaden their ideas of what highly capable looks like. We have those screening pieces in place and the alpha piece, all of those really come together so that the program represents the community instead of it being this elite, narrow representation. And we also look at local norms of the different schools, so to make sure, like at the different key Peninsula schools, and we saw at times schools that were being less represented, working with the counselors to refer students and find students that might have been missed in the past. A second piece that we really focus on and put energy into is that ongoing professional development around those equitable practices. Because it's one thing to identify the students, but then if they become identified and then the program is really narrow and it's just very just academic, going faster, instead of trying to think of the different social emotional needs of the students. Twice exceptional students that are highly capable and they have another exceptionality. They might be served with an IEP, a 504, could be like an autism spectrum, making sure that it's really been a focus and something we've done a lot of PD and surround for our teachers as well, just because that's something that wasn't necessarily in people's backgrounds, and it's so essential to make sure that we are serving all of our students. And on the topic of like demographics for like 504s, our district, I think when I looked last, it was like 4 or 5% of the students had the 504, and same for the highly capable program, which is very rare. But I think that it speaks a lot to the fact that we work with the school psychologist, and sometimes they'll be doing an eval for special education, and they know that if there's a WISC score or cognitive score that's high, we really want to make sure that we know about that so we can use that information to help identify. And if we're working to identify and we find students that have support, we have programs that really make sure that we meet them right where they are. Beyond working with the K-1 teachers, the cluster teachers in each of the schools, the self-contained and the secondary, I'm also just so thankful and fortunate that we also reach out to counselors and sometimes have professional development for the counselors. We have that open relationship with the school psychologist, and then the principals as well. There's all kinds of support, either co-planning or helping really open their mind about sometimes students that would have popped up as behavior issues. A lot of times that might have elements in those highly capable students that don't look like people pleaser or high achiever, and it's really helped to kind of reform some of that structure. So all of those pieces go to a real change as far as universal advocacy. When I gave the example of calling up or emailing the teachers and saying, this student really is popping up when I'm looking at their language acquisition, that same teacher a year later will come back with 3 students that they say, I remember what you said, and I've seen this in class, and they really look at their students in a different way, and I feel like really take that advocacy personally. And same with the counselors. We had a book study, and we talked about all those different personalities, and some of the students that are popping up with high needs, and it really changes it from, I come from, in Oregon, we were at I was at a like 85, 90% high free and reduced lunch school district. I had a lot of EL background, and it was always about, these are all our students. We wrap around these students. We don't other students. And I feel like I've tried to bring that to the highly capable program as well, to make sure that it's that universal piece. And then the last piece that I think is kind of feeding into another group that comes out is just those variety of services that we offer. I often hear from families in the area, someone might be working at Madigan or Bremerton, and they choose, when they look at all the different districts nearby, the deciding factors for some families is that highly capable program, that we have such a diverse range. We have the K1 piece where when I tell other district coordinators or when I talk to people in positions nationally, they're amazed that I've been able to have PD and access, and teachers are calling up and saying, hey, I've got this student, can we brainstorm and think about how, or could you come and co-teach a lesson? That doesn't happen in all districts, and the teachers have been incredibly open and supportive, and they run with those ideas. And then we have those cluster models of the students in a single area. They might be accelerated in reading, accelerated in math, or they want to just stay with their neighborhood school, like you were talking about before. They have those connections. So we have that at all of the schools. We have the self-contained piece at 3 of the schools, and then we have a lot of those advanced pathways. And all of that builds together to just provide, I think, a wide range of services so that families can decide what's the best fit for their students. For the social emotional needs, for the academic needs, for the peer needs. For some students, the PACE program is honestly like a lifer, and it's something that really is what they need, where they find their peers. It makes a huge difference in their life. There's other students that the cluster program and staying in their community is what really fits their needs. So the last piece that I wanted to kind of focus in on is we always try to revisit and evolve our practices and think about what is best for our students and our district. And so with that in mind, we've been talking with the redistricting about what makes sense as far as the PACE program locations, what makes sense for the different needs. And it's been after a number of weeks and a number of conversations, Cabinet made the decision this week, and I wanted to share with you and be able to kind of explain it. Some things that are going to be the same and some things that are going to be different. So there will still be AIR and AIM clusters at all of the schools, and that does include Pioneer as well, because there are students that are highly capable identified. The STEM setup is a great fit for them, but they still are accessing teachers that have had that additional training and their peers. So at all of the elementary schools, there's the AIR, AIM clusters for reading and math. And then Voyager and Discovery are going to still be sites as far as the PACE program. For Discovery, it will be Swiftwater and Discovery feeding into it. For Voyager, it'll be Artendale, Harbor Heights, and Voyager. And then the changes are, instead of being at Minter Creek for the Evergreen Bond Minter Creek Purdy program, the program would be located at Purdy, which would serve Evergreen Bond, Minter, and Purdy. And one piece to that, there's a couple of different elements, and I can definitely answer questions along with that. One factor is we have had, when I look through the different last 5 years of where students have been identified and where we just kind of have concentrations of students. At Purdy, there's 20 to 35%, depending on the year, of our highly capable identified students, PACE identified, not cluster identified, at that location. We've never had the space in there. We really wanted to have, and we've been really committed to having that place on the Key Peninsula at Minter Creek. Now with the shifting, we re-looked at where there was space, the demographics of where students were coming from, where there were other special programs, there are a number of factors. And with Purdy, there is now space in a different way because of the great building that, being able to open and the bond, all those pieces. And there's really been a challenge over the last number of years where we had students that did not attend and they stayed back at Purdy. And so the teachers would have students that were 2 or 3 grade levels beyond their peers. PACE was probably the best place for them, but they elected not to go Purdy. And when I say students, I mean sometimes 15 in the grade level. We'd also have, and so the teachers are amazing at Purdy, just like the schools, and they really want to stretch and extend to those students. And it just ended up being an untenable situation all around. And another thing that we found was I doubled down and worked incredibly hard to make sure we were finding those students Evergreen and Bond. We were using all of those strategies. And I found, just like Mr. West talked about earlier, a lot of those students are really connected to their communities. And so we would find more students, we'd identify more students, and they wanted to stay at Evergreen, and they wanted to stay, especially now with it being a new school. And so with the shift to be able to pick up, 25, 30 some students that we have just been year after year after year not serving in that program, and to be, instead of busing 40 some students to one school, maybe busing 10 or some to the other, I'm really excited to announce that we will be adding a halftime differentiation specialist just for the Key Peninsula. So that'd be someone that would honor that boots on the ground. People wanted to stay at their schools, but a boots on the ground person to pull out, to be able to work with the teachers to differentiate, to be able to extend the learning, and especially this year when so much focus, like we were talking about earlier, is going to be towards filling in gaps and catching kids up. We're still going to have 5 to 10% of our students that need to be extended and enriched and pushed. And so this will be an opportunity to be able to, any of those students would still have the cluster, they still have the opportunity to choose to do PACE, but if they choose and want to stay at that community school that they feel connected to, we will have a differentiation specialist working on those highly capable pieces. So I know that's a big shift, I know it's a lot, and I'm totally open for questions and discuss.
I know 5 or 6 years ago, there was a huge discussion around exactly what you said, that there was a lot of people, a lot of students who were testing into high cap and were electing not to go because of the location was at Mentor, and which is unfortunate. But was that solely based on the lack of space at Purdy? And so the fact you're bringing it back to Purdy now, was that survey?
Very confused. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very confusing to me.
Yeah.
Why that was, we had so many students not going into high cap just because the way it was run, or maybe could,
I think so. Really, in the piece to all of your questions, there has been not even an option to discuss it because Purdy has been really at capacity or beyond. I mean, even did that redistricting piece with someone going to Voyager. With this change now, and with the most recent redistricting, another component to consider is students that have been in the Voyager PACE program for years, probably nearly 10, 8 to 10 families, they're now back to Purdy, which they would have been before. So it's not only, there's just shifting and students moving all around, but this ends up making a solution geographically for as far as transportation pieces, as far as access, where it's 10 minutes further down the road. I know it is, like, for me, it's an emotional piece to not be at Minter. I'm very connected to that school. I feel like people have great experiences when they've gone to the school, and to not be physically on the Key Peninsula. But in another way, now we will have about 35%, it varies from year to year, and we don't cut the numbers, and we cap the numbers, we don't backfill the numbers, but I look at trends. And so in a 5-year trend, pretty average, this would put about 35% of our students at the Purdy location, 30-40% at the Voyager location, and so they will both be at probably about running 1 or 2 classes per grade level for the 2-3 and the 4-5, and then Discovery will be hopefully about the same size, so we're going to have 1 2-3 and 1 4-5. So it really spreads it out geographically. It's been really nice the last couple of years, just like they used to have 3 sites when Artendale was a site at one point, to be able to have shifting, because part of the state laws is we need to have a place for students when they move in the summer, when they have had highly capable services before and they test with us, and that gets really difficult when you have 2 sites. So we'd have Voyager sometimes right at capacity. Teachers would have 31 students at one point not that long ago, and people would come in and we'd have to say, you still get services because we want to be within the law, but you have to drive to Winter Creek from Fox Island. And so now to have 3 sites, it really, especially one that feeds kind of to both, to 2 different pathways as far as PHS and the private, really helps with that.
Thank you.
Joy, to clarify, the 3 PACE programs will be on the Gig Harbor side. Purdy, Discovery, and Voyager. Okay. So the PHS feeding side, like the Purdy feeds into the PHS side, for the most part would be at Purdy, yes. Yeah, I've been involved in the highly capable program for 10 years when we first started having community meetings, and that argument was made back 10 years ago saying, you've got kids not going over to be in the PACE program or highly capable at the time because of the location. Why can't we move this? It was never quite said flat out space. I think I'm glad we came to that, but I also appreciate the families that have chosen Minter Creek. And when will they be notified? Because like you said, your home is there with the PACE program. Have they been notified? Because this will be a big switch for them. Right. I'm sending an email partially just because I wanted to be able to explain it beyond just an email or the bulletin. I wanted this forum to be able to talk to the board tonight, even through the teachers and everything. I spoke to the teachers that had been at Ninja Creek, but otherwise they're getting an email tomorrow morning, and then the principals are getting an email that they can share through. So I just wanted to have that communication be all together.
Okay.
And just to clarify, the 2-3, there's only 4 or 5 case right now at Ninja Creek. The 2-3 class, because of the COVID numbers, everything had been collapsed and redistributed. Right now they're at Discovery.
Okay. So one, I'm also just really happy with the progress you've made in terms of identifying students. Again, 10 years ago it was, did you excel in reading or did you excel in math? Okay, if you excelled in one of them, you're in the program. Then it moved to very stringent, where it was you had to excel in both. And again, it was all just testing, take testing, test. And so the fact that you've got teachers identifying yourself in the program, a lot of factors, looking at a lot of factors to identify those highly capable kids. Because I don't think it is just a scanned double test to identify that type of kiddo. You've got some teachers that are probably very involved in the training with it, and maybe some that might not be, I don't know. What about those teachers that aren't, and they've got those kids in their class and they're just not servicing them up for the program? Are we missing some kids because of that? Do parents have to be the advocates for it? Are they educated to know that they should be I just want to make sure we're not missing some because of that now.
For the actual testing or for the survey?
Any, just identifying them, like what are we doing to make sure we're catching all?
So to be frank, the differentiation specialist piece, I think, I've been hoping and looking at some other districts like South Kitsap added one of those. I feel like there are unfound gems within probably Evergreen, Vaughn, and Minter, if I'm picking more than other schools. And the counselors have been great, the teachers have been great, but having someone there to say, did you hear how they answered this question? Or I did this with the whole class and they came up with, like I remember I was at Minter Creek, one of the picture book screeners, there's a box and it's called Not a Box and the kids make an activity to go with it. And one of the little girls came up and it was just amazing. Like activities everywhere, the kids all have the boxes, they're doing all these incredible things. And she comes up, she lifts it up to me because I was helping out the class today, and she had put shells or beads inside and it shifted, and she said, did you hear that? And I said, I did. And she said, it's the astronauts, they forgot to put on their seatbelts. They're in for a bumpy ride. And she walked off and I was like, where's the clipboard? And so I think having more activities and more opportunities, it will definitely not just be a traditional only pull out the already identified. I'm envisioning as someone that goes into the K-1 classes and helps with those screeners and supports the teachers when they say, I've got 3 kids that I know I'm not reaching as much because I've got 10 kids that don't have this math concept in 3rd grade, help. And they can pull those resources so they can teach a lesson or they can co-teach. And so I think having someone there and consistently at the schools with that lens would be a huge help so that we can also find and develop that talent, because that's part of that goal, is not having those students.
So they would rotate through the school then to help. Okay, so this perfect. Okay.
Yeah, and since the theme of that is not talking to people for that stuff, I'd also like to think about maybe KPMS as well, but I've talked to Jerry. So we'll see about that, but there might be that potential of all the KPMS schools, or all the Key Peninsula schools, and see if there might be a way to also follow through and have like a K-8 element of one day of checking in on those students and see if there's students that we've missed along the way, that we can challenge their training themselves and kind of underachieving. So
I just want to add, when Joy and I talked about this initially, I think there's some great potential for that, even looking at KPMS. And I think when we look at the data and see so few students from Evergreen particularly and Vaughn not accessing PACE, I think having the specialists be able to go out, go to the schools, and I would hope that we can work in KPMS too. I think there's some great potential to meet students that way.
You might be able to find kids through this remote learning program too, because there's some kids that did not do well in the classroom for whatever reason, but have just blossomed as remote learners. So I don't know if there's ways of identifying those kids too.
Absolutely.
obviously I wanna make that appeal. You do bring something out of the Peninsula. It's a third of the population, it's a third of the students, but you know, all three of the PACE programs are really trying to be on their side.
Yeah. So I think one piece is, it's ever evolving, like the last slide talked about, that I think if we have, this is a great piece, but it's hard to say 2 or 3 or 4 years with that differentiation specialist. Will they find some of that unspoken talent when we shift and maybe that looks like a more robust piece at KPMS? One thing that I kept thinking about with this is, in the book, the Heath brothers have the book Switch, and they have this great this great example of they went to a village a group went to a village in Africa, and they kept trying to push these outside ideas about help feeding the family and what it should look like, and it just blew up in their face. It was rejected. Versus then what they instead did, the chapter's all about the bright spot, and they went and found whose kids are gaining weight, what are they doing, and they were incorporating the food that was traditional, and they said, let's just take what this person's doing, they're teaching us.
Yeah.
And I spent a year with Evergreen working with them on project-based learning, integrated approach, and supporting the teachers. And like I said, my background and my heart is there. And so I totally hear what you're saying, but I also think sometimes we can push what we think should work, or push because the optics or something, versus really getting at the heart of what's right for the community and what the community is telling us. And what I've seen is they want to be able to be part of that community, and this I feel like is an elegant solution where when you've got that student that paces the need, I understand it's 10-minute longer bus ride, and I know there's a piece of dragging across that bridge, I get that, but I feel like that's still there, the clusters are still there, and to be able to bring this differentiation specialist, I feel like meeting the people and the families and the teachers right where they are, and I really think, honestly, I feel like highly capable services the last number of years has almost been like a Trojan horse in a positive spin, where we brought in integrated approach, we brought in compacting, we brought in universal design. Like a lot of the things that are happening in schools, which is incredible, many of those teachers are like, you brought up, they've been trained on those highly capable strategies, and now they're taking them to Swiftwater, they're working with them at Pioneer. Those are incredible strategies that I'd love to see get more of a foothold within those schools. And I know the teachers would access it, and I really think it could be positive. I know it looks different, I totally hear you, but I hope that also fits some of those needs too.
Yeah, I want to continue to push. The geography of our district is in such that it's unlike the city of Tacoma or something like that. We can put a school here and everybody can come from all different sides. Evergreen's accessed by one long highway and one little bridge, and we need to provide those services along Evergreen. So in the future, I want to continue to push. We need this at Vaughan or somewhere.
And I do want to clarify, they will also still have them cluster classes at those schools as well. So, and that's where kids are kind of defaulting and saying, even when Winter was the self-contained, and we worked so hard to find more students, they just said, I'd rather be with my friends, but be going faster and have this teacher have some training. And so some districts don't have that at all. And I'm really proud that we have both, because I do think it meets those needs. And I didn't even touch on middle school, but for all of the middle schoolers, they really are driving and pushing to have robust challenges. And the KPMS programs, as far as math, science, and NJROTC, the things that she does for ELA, I got an example of coding with, they were doing ciphers on a Pringles can today, and she sent me a message. I mean, it's just off the charts things that are really extending and challenging the students. So I absolutely hear you, and I really do hope that this meets that, goes beyond, and is something just special for the KP as well.
You talked about the equity piece, and I'll make this real quick. Just going back to one of your first comments about some of our lower income students, perhaps. When we identify them and they are in a cluster or a PACE, and they're in that really special place where the teacher understands their special characteristics and all of those needs, and then moves on to middle school, which I feel like is I don't want to use the word hybrid again, but I will, like a hybrid between those special characteristics and then those more challenging, rigorous classes. And they move on to high school and they kind of go maybe the AP route. Are we identifying students are we losing students to the AP world because of the fee associated with it, or are we able to are we able to offer coverage of fees for SATs and AP classes and things like that, so that we keep those students in that level of rigor?
I think that's a great question. So a couple different answers that go along with that is we've really brought in a lot of college and high school pieces and like the running start pieces, so that at one point, not too long ago, it really was, here's this AP track, and there was also, I think probably that was the scenario where kids weren't talking, the counselors weren't aware of why kids were especially kind of pulling back and falling away from that. But a lot of the routes that we have now don't have those fees associated with them. They're a little bit more accessible, and the counselors have been amazing about knowing who might need that access. So even when there's just a shift and it's something going on in the family right now, it hasn't been, it's a situational poverty piece, and they have really done wraparound services with it. And I also really would say the secondary counselors, I've enjoyed working with all the counselors, but when I've gone sometimes and talked about, when you have these students that are under, you say that they're high cap on the paper, but that you're not seeing any of that, here's some of the reasons why. Here's some of the ways you might connect back. And I've truly had times where, like at PHS, they pulled up coffee pre-COVID times, and they were like, do you have an hour? We have so many students we want to talk, kid by kid by kid. And here's all the ways we're wrapping around, and here's ways we're making sure we're keeping them accessing those paths, or those outside pieces like robotics or health sciences internship to keep them engaged. And so I definitely think between the counseling staff and having a little bit more than just that single AP pathway has been helpful to keep those doors open. But that's a good question.
Okay.
Yeah, you bet.
Any students, do you have any questions for our people?
Thank you. Study taking it to great places. Study taking it to great places.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
We do appreciate it.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you for sure. I like it.
Not sure what camera was in, but.
Yeah.
So we move on to item number 8.4. This afternoon, Governor Inslee announced that our state's physical distancing requirements within K through 12 schools will be changed to follow CDC guidance that was released on March 19th. This option is effective immediately. The CDC is recommending that the distance between students can be reduced to 3 feet. And again, this afternoon, the Governor Inslee announced this can go into effect immediately. So I know that last year the board was very adamant and made a promise to our community that when we were able to pivot and bring more students back, we would. And I'm really proud of the progress that the school district has made over the past year, being a leader in our community and then within the state actually, to bring our kids back safely and along with our staff and do so safely. And with the new guidance, I think it's really important that we have a discussion tonight about how quickly we can pivot to this 3 feet. Maybe easier within elementary school, but I definitely think we should have a very thoughtful discussion about it, because I think parents are going to expect the school district to move quickly to try and implement these new changes. So I'll just open it up for comment. Natalie, you want to go first?
Well, we're gonna have
May I make a?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll let you go
I
first.
think what I'd like to do is position you with some information that we'll hand it back to you. That if I may tease you first, this meeting was structured to be done in 2 hours at 8 o'clock, and without this item, we would have made it. So Tanya doesn't believe that, because since she's been here, we've had fairly lengthy meetings. But I tease you a little bit just because we're going to try to figure out how to phrase a conversation without any particular conclusion this evening, and give some of the reasons behind that. This is a huge topic, but the introduction I'd like to make is to just walk very briefly through what it means and what it is and what it isn't. The governor's order really says that the CDC guidance that just came out will become the minimum for the state, the 3 foot rather than the 6 foot minimum. it leaves for this spring the option for a district to use a 6-foot standard or a 3-foot standard. As of the summer and the fall, there is no option. The district will use a 3-foot option. So that applies this summer, it will apply this fall. As we were becoming aware that this was circulating in the CDC and might come out, we began any number of conversations, because as we were trying to begin intense planning for the fall, the real key to that was that we've learned how to do our remote work, we've learned what to do with devices, we've learned what to do with our curriculum, we've learned what to do with master schedules. Earlier I made the comment that pivoting was this idea early on, back in March of 20, that we could pivot on a dime, and as soon as we could do this, we could pivot back and forth, in or out, depending on the caseload. Obviously, there are districts that still have not got all the kids back. It's been one of the more intense struggles that I think school districts have undergone. Part of it was logistics, part of it was the public in the sense of keeping people safe and people's perception of what was required and needed by the school district. Part of that was learning all the countermeasures and really not just learning what they were, but how to keep them enforced. Again, earlier you heard references to how good the kids have been, and I think that has been true all the way from our littlest ones, our preschoolers, right on through. The kids have adapted quickly and adapted well. A piece that I don't want to underemphasize, and I really want to put on the table tonight, is that we had to learn as a system to do things like working with the attestation forms, working with temperature taking, working with how do we feed kids, how do kids move within the school. And I want to put my finger on that in particular because nowhere in this school system, even though we've been somewhat leading the pack, nowhere do we have a normal class size. We have no class that meets with a teacher that is normal size. We have no school that has a normal assortment of numbers of students. So one of the questions that's going to face us in this discussion this evening, and I know it's already been identified, is you look at our grades 3 through 5 that are half in the morning and half in the afternoon. Simplest thing now with a 3-foot is let's just put them together. We'll have a full class and we'll move right into the 3 through 5. I would point out several areas, and I do want to invite Dan and John to also join in this. This has been developing since 3:15 this afternoon, so we haven't prepared a whole lot. But an example of that is that each of our elementaries will, if we implemented that and combined our 3-5 and the 2 halves, put them together, we will have, in essence, the complete K-5 preschool 5 in that school, arriving at the same time, being with their temperature taken, the attestation forms, the traffic, and I can assure you that alone, that specter was one we've actually been trying this last week to calm that was not going to take place because it would be so highly disruptive to, we simply can't handle the numbers. We can't handle several hundred kids. Karen is back there, and I would certainly invite Karen into the conversation. One of Karen's early comments, and I'll sort of quote her, was the number of times she's already had to rebid the drivers and their jobs and the routes, and what it takes to change the system from what we're doing to what's there. I'm not trying to throw at you every excuse not, but I am going to try to say to you that this one is huge. It is not simple, it is not a pivot, it's not, superintendents had a couple of conversations for the last day or two were making fun of the word pivot because it's just becoming one that it has an impression that we can spin quickly and make a move in another direction, and we've learned that we can't. I don't want to point this at anybody, but we also have an MOU with our employees. We have ways that we've agreed with our employees to meet certain health standards and the protocols that we have in place. We are not free to just say that this is different now and that protocol is no longer in place. This spring, that protocol is a minimum of 3 feet, but can stay with the 6 feet. And that standard would be gone somewhat automatically in the summer or the fall because the governor has said it's no longer there. But in the springtime, it is very definitely a choice that's being made at the district level. I want to cover just a few other points, and then I want to invite Dan and John. So the smaller classes that become bigger classes, and the cohorts that become bigger, the more students in the school, the transportation, the countermeasures of masks, attestations, recesses, temperature checks. One of the pieces that you may or may not recognize that's going on right now is when a child comes or a student who tests positive or the temperature is up.